Hi there, I'm Dr. Jennifer Jackson. I'm a registered nurse and assistant professor in the Faculty of Nursing at the University of Calgary. And this is a video to explain different metrics that are used in academia and what they mean. So there is a lot of alphabet soup in academia. You've got DOI, ORCID ID, site score, H-index, impact factor, I-13 index. So all of these different kinds of things are metrics that are used transdisciplinarily in health science and research and at universities. And so it's hard to figure out, like, what is the difference between these things? Why do they matter? Why do I need them? Or why should I consider them? And so what I'm going to do is talk through some of the main ones. They might mean different things to your discipline around, specific expectations or something. But overall, I'm going to try and provide a high-level view of the purpose of each of these metrics. They're calculated sometimes by like a complex algorithm that I don't pretend to understand, but I'm hoping I can give you like very practical sense of what these different things are. So first one is a DOI, so a data object identifier. What this does is it provides a durable way to get at an item online. So often this is a journal article, and it is created so that maybe if the journal article is translated, or maybe if the journal goes under and doesn't exist anymore, if the publisher changes, any one of these different things can change where you can find a journal article online. Maybe, this journal ceases publishing and all of their back catalog is rolled into something new. A DOI, the purpose of that is to give you a durable way to find an article. So even if things change, you should be able to use that number to find your article through a DOI search. So it's a way of providing durable access to a specific piece of information or a specific publication or like database, piece of science. So it's about a thing. So we have an ORCID ID, which is similar, but it's about you. So an ORCID ID is a number that provides durable access to you. So we find that colleagues in academia move often. It's very rare now for someone to do their whole career at one university. It happens, but it's more of the exception than the rule. The other thing is people's names can change, whether they're married, divorced, any number of things. So the idea that you're looking for Jennifer Jackson might not be durable, or that you're looking for a Jackson at the University of Calgary might also not be durable. So the purpose of an ORCID ID or ORCID is that it follows you wherever you are. So no matter if your name changes or if you change organizations, there is a durable place categorized online that shows where all your publications are. So those two provide the DOI and the ORCID ID. They provide a sense of continuity, whether it's for the journal article specifically or the researcher who wrote it. It's also good to sign up for an ORCID ID because it makes it easier in many cases to submit journal articles. You can put your information in there and it means that you don't have to re-enter it every single time. It also is maybe, especially if you're a novice researcher, it might be a good thing to have in your email signature because somebody can click on it and it can take them to all of your publications. So it's a good way to kind of coalesce everything together around something that's external to your organization and endures beyond, say, a specific position. Looking at journals, and publication metrics, we have the H-index and the impact factor. So the H-index, at its worst, measures how good a professor you are. At its best, it is one of many metrics that contributes to an overall demonstration of someone's contributions to their field. So it is beyond the scope of this video to critique the neoliberal contributions of a number that values whether I've made a difference in publishing or not. But it is an expectation for many places. And if you're applying for awards or things, they might want to know. Ideally, it's not looked at to compare person to person. It's more to show growth over time, although I'm not going to pretend that it's always used in such a positive way. So an H index is a complex thing, but at its most fundamental level, as I understand it, it is the number of papers you've had cited the number of times. So it means if your H index is 13, it means you have at least 13 journal articles that have been cited at least 13 times each. So why some people see this as being significant is because we know that, publisher perish is still very much present in academia. You're expected to publish all the time. Now, if those publications go out and nobody ever reads them, are they making any difference? So the idea is that if your work is cited by other scholars, it has made a contribution to your discipline. Now, that's a bit of a crude way of measuring because, people could cite your paper to point out its flaws or any number of other things. That said, an H index is a way of showing how many articles you've published and how often they have been cited in the literature. You can generate these through Google Scholar. They provide a public H index. There's other, I think Web of Science does it, like there's other places that offer that metric. So if you need to report that, it might just be something that you want to check, like which source does your institution or your tenure body or whomever, like what source do they consider reputable? Most of the time, it's my understanding that Google Scholar is enough, but you might see different from somewhere else. Last one I'm going to talk about is the impact factor. So this is a metric that relates to journals and is essentially like how good a journal is this, or how visible a journal is this, and how prominent is your work if you publish here. Again, like at its best, it can tell you, are you publishing with a reputable source? This isn't a predatory journal. This is a good place to publish, and will my work be seen and accessible and respected? At its worst, it's used to say this is good and this is bad, and anything under, a certain level is not worth publishing, and so on. It can also be used to justify open access, gold open access publishing charges, because the journals can say, well, we're giving you really high level exposure, so it's worth paying us $10,000. Again, beyond the scope of this video to unpack those arguments, just to say that an impact factor, it does represent a sign of credibility within publishing. So in general, you don't publish anywhere that doesn't have an impact factor. And each journal should have it right on their landing page, or like immediately available if you click on something like journal metrics, or there should be some kind of tab for that. So it depends on your discipline. Nature and science are generally the highest impact journals in the world. I think they're in the 50s. So like that is the Mount Everest. You can look at like the impact factor of the Lancet is going to be higher than, the Alberta Journal of Medicine. So there is a degree of like relative prominence in these different things. Yeah, what is considered good depends discipline to discipline. If you are in an emerging discipline, having a impact factor of 1.5 to 3 is probably a good place to be. There might be some disciplines where anything less than 8 is not considered reputable. So it's important to kind of take that with a grain of salt, but also to be mindful of like, how is this system applied? And part of it is because of the credibility. There's been an increasing proliferation of predatory journals, which at their simplest are pay to play. And reputable academics want to avoid them at all costs. But you know, they're getting pretty good at making flashy websites like everybody else. And so it's hard to always know, is this reputable or not? So an impact factor isn't a perfect litmus test of that, but it can help to figure out if the journal is credible. There are also journals that do not have impact factors, particularly for associations. So you might have like a Canadian journal of a specific kind of nursing. They might not have an impact factor, but if you have received funding from them, or you know that you specifically want to influence policy or practice for that community. So if it's a specific issue that's affecting like Canadian critical care or Canadian urinary nursing or whatever the case may be, you might put it in an article, or you might publish something in a journal that doesn't have an impact factor because you want it in that specific place. You can also sometimes, if you've got something that's like a really technical method, or it has different components that there's a quite niche knowledge community around it, they might have their own publications which also don't have impact factors. So there can be times where it's justified to publish in that space, although it's usually prudent to publish with an impact factor that is appropriate for your discipline. Also, there is a technique in terms of publishing. When you're submitting academic journal articles, you should expect to get rejected. It is commonplace, and it often has nothing to do with you. It could be because they've already published 2 articles about that topic this month. It could be because they are fully booked for empirical articles for 6 months, and right now they're only taking letters to the editor. Like there are myriad reasons that your journal article might not be accepted. One approach, and this is like a very broad brushstroke, it's not saying this is the right approach for everybody, but with one, you might pick the highest impact factor in your discipline or in the knowledge community that you want to influence, and start there and work your way down. So maybe your first submission is going to a journal article with an impact factor 11. They say no. Okay, thanks for coming out. Now we're going to try 8. They say no. Okay, well, let's try the one that's 6.5, and then maybe we submit one more time to the journal that's 5 and they take it. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're only submitting to one journal at a time. You can go through that process. The impact factors, using them that way about decisions for where to submit your work, can be helpful because it is just so difficult to keep on top of how many journals are in your area, which ones are published in the UK versus the USA versus Australia, and which ones have what conventions and what kind of discussion is happening there. Is it affiliated with an organization or an association? So especially if you're publishing somewhere a little bit out of your normal sphere, maybe you've got a project that's collaborating with another discipline and you're putting it in kind of their knowledge community, then impact factors can be helpful, so you have some sense of like where does this journal fit in the overall conversation. So I hope this is helpful in demystifying some of the myriad number and letter soup combinations in academia. And like everything, these could help guide decision making, but they should not be viewed as a definitive metric of value, because that's not the case. And right now, you know, they want measurements of everything, and 10 years later there will be something different. So take it for what it is.